everyone, I'm Goldie Chan, and today I'm going to talk about how students can develop a personal brand in STEM. So as a student, maybe you feel like it's a little premature to build your personal brand. You think, I need a few more years of experience under my belt before I can grow a personal brand. But that's not true. You can grow a personal brand today. So let's jump into a few ways to think about growing your personal brand. Let's start with the first step, and I'm going to call this prep before you go. What do I mean by this? I mean prep for the career you want to have. So number one, be disciplined. This in general is just great career advice, but it's also helpful for your personal brand. Because if you are disciplined, if you are focused, you'll know what you want to develop your personal brand around. What is it that you want to have your career in STEM hopefully focus on, at least to start. And being disciplined means you can do a lot more. You can be growing at a faster rate than other people who are more unfocused. And that brings us to determining your career direction. Now, this is something I give an entire separate talk on, and I'm sure some of you out there are maybe not sure what you want your career direction to be, but it's so helpful in the very beginning to start with the direction, because you absolutely can change what you're doing later on. But the reason why I say it's helpful to start with something that you're doing first is that when you are creating your personal brand, when you're putting yourself out there, when you're building your resume, it's helpful to know how you want to be seen as first and what you want to focus on. So perhaps you want to focus on research science. It's helpful to know that, because those will be the kind of jobs that you'll be applying for, and that's what you'll be tailoring your resume for. Okay, next, it's helpful to ask for informational interviews. This is something that is so overlooked, and most people don't take advantage of this before they leave college. And that is an informational interview. Now, this is simply asking someone who is a professional in the field if you can talk to them for an hour and ask them questions about their job, their careers. And obviously, this is so helpful because you can see where they started and how they structured and they moved through their career and became hopefully successful. Now, this is also helpful too, because sometimes what this allows you to do is shadow someone for a day as well. And that's even more interesting. So you can see what a day in the life of somebody that you might want to eventually do their job looks like. And the best part about this is you can ask for informational interviews from anyone who is entry level to someone who is very far along in their career. All of it will be so helpful for you for understanding where you want to go with your career. Okay, next is, and this is something that some of us have to do regardless, which is work at an internship or part-time job. So this is, I'd like to say this is the sibling to informational interviews. So while an informational interview tends to be a one-off thing that, if you're very lucky, will lead to an internship or a part-time job, it might not, and that's okay. But working at a part-time job is so helpful for your career because it, of course, gives you another bullet point that you can put on your resume. And your resume might be a little bare to start, and we'll go into what we can add on to a resume. But it adds, of course, something else, and the skill set that you learn at an internship or a part-time job will be helpful too. Now, if you don't know where to start with looking for an internship or part-time job, there's always a career center at your college. And that's a good place to start and ask, oh, I'm looking for an internship in XYZ field. Do you guys know about anything that I can look at in particular? It's a great place to start asking questions. And if they don't know, they might be able to point you at other resources online or in person. And then next, and this is a little bit tied into being disciplined, focus on your skill set. So focus on growing your skill set. Now, this might mean everything from being able to do an Excel doc, which you may not think about being useful, but it is very, very helpful organizationally and helpful for certain roles. So growing your skill set as much as you can prior to leaving college. So learning as much as you can. I know this is probably an exhausting thing to ask you, but learning more is so helpful. And this is where informational interviews can come in handy, because they'll tell you some of the skill sets that maybe they learned on the job when they were first starting out, or skills that they value in employees now. So adding onto your skill set before you even leave college will help you not only for your resume, but very practically help you when you get into the workforce. Okay, so let's talk really quickly through the building blocks of a personal brand. And here are a few things. So number one, create a LinkedIn profile. It's helpful when you're thinking about a LinkedIn profile to have a nice, clean profile image. And this can be something that you just take on your phone, as long as it's clear, it doesn't have anything possibly inflammatory in it. Make sure to use your common sense. And then make sure that it says what school you're going to right now, perhaps the things that you're volunteering in. All of that information can go onto your LinkedIn profile. And it's also a good way that when you're still a student to start trying to connect to industry professionals and asking them for either in-person or virtual informational interviews. LinkedIn is a great place for that. Next, clean up your social media. I have to say this all the time, but if you are making wild TikToks, and I absolutely get this, but if you are making something that you don't want a future boss to see, really think about that. Because if someone will be upset by the things that you make and won't hire you for a job that you really want, perhaps it's time to either make those things anonymously, although I caution against that because you can always get found out, or put that under a completely separate header, or don't do it at all. So be really thoughtful about how you present yourself online and how your social media looks in general. Next, add your connections to social media. So when you're in college, you don't think about this, but guess what? All the people that you're in college with right now are connections that you can add on LinkedIn. They're connections that you can add on Instagram or TikTok, etc. They're people that you can add onto your social network that will help you possibly eventually get a job. And that is really, really wonderful and helpful. So really think about adding in all the people you already know onto a social network like LinkedIn. Next, work on a strong resume. So a strong resume, and this is tough because maybe you haven't had a job yet. Maybe you haven't had part-time work yet. What can we add onto our resume as a college student? Well, we can add on relevant classes, coursework that we've done. We can add on any interesting volunteer work that we've done, and especially any STEM-related volunteer work. We can add on any awards that we've won. We can add on any additional outside things that if we've spoken on a panel, if we've done anything interesting like that, you can add all that on. If we've led any groups on campus, all of those things can go onto your resume. And eventually, as you progress in your career, you'll remove some of those things and replace them with work experience. But it's also helpful to think, okay, once again, maybe you know how to use Microsoft Word, Microsoft Office. That's a skill set that you can put directly on your resume. Okay, next, make content that makes sense. So if you are hoping to get into a certain field, it's helpful to start trying to read industry publications that are in that field and starting to talk about interesting things that happen. And the reason why we do this is because it makes you look very informed, and it makes you just a step closer to being an expert or somebody at least is very knowledgeable in your field. And that is somebody who's much more likely to get hired. Okay. And then finally, I like to end with this: ask for help. It's totally okay to ask for help when you need it, whether that's help getting an internship, whether that's help getting your first job, whether that's help reviewing your resume. It's always okay to ask for help. And this is where it's helpful to also think about looking for the right kind of mentor who might also be able to help you more. So we went over a few steps of building your personal brand in terms of the physical components that you might need, like a resume, a LinkedIn profile, developing content that makes sense, and then also some of the other things that might be helpful, like asking for informational interviews or getting a part-time job or internship. I hope this helped you in growing or thinking about growing your personal brand in STEM. I'm Goldie Chan, and you can find all of my contact on this slide. Thank you, everyone.